Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Scenario Gaming Shoot You Sir podcast. It's a very special podcast today, hosted by myself, Slayer Sar. Graham Pike is with us as always. Hi, Graham.
Hello.
And we've got Dace. And Dace, you're going to have to pronounce again that second thing because it's gone in one ear and out the other one.
Yeah, Anaxyrus.
Anaxyrus, there we go. Dace Anaxyrus with us. And we've invited him in. Basically, I came across his book, Shmup Ascension, and reviewed it in an issue of Shoot You Sir. And then we got chatting on Twitter, I think it was, just a bit of back and forth. And then I sort of discovered a bit of Dace's Shmuptopia and his YouTube channel and things like that. But Dace, I just wondered for our readers and our viewers and things, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I am really passionate about shmups, and I only got into them, to be honest, in 2018. So I'm very late to the party compared to people who have decades of experience, because it's one of the oldest genres. But there was just something about these games that pulled me right in. And interestingly enough, what I started to notice when I would hear other people talk about these games is everyone was excited, and yet everyone was saying how much they sucked at them, or like these games are impossible to play. And that got me thinking. I was like, there's got to be something that can be done to kind of bring down that mentality, just have that dissipate and start showing people what they can do to actually approach these games, because I was playing them as well, and I wasn't adopting that same kind of opinion of them or like that perspective. And maybe it's just because I was doing different things, or my positive attitude helping me just push through immense challenges within these, because they are very hard games at times. But I just was very inspired to start showcasing games, sharing tips and tricks and all that kind of stuff. And that led me to writing the book, which is what it is. So yeah, I don't want to ramble too much, but
no, that's fine. I mean, it's the reason I got the book initially is, like yourself, I'm fairly late to the game, although I played shoot 'em up games before and hadn't really gotten into them so much. I think Graham was just before, about a year or so before the pandemic, was it? We started doing a bit more back and forth about it. Graham's got much more experience with it than I have. But the reason why I got the book, I flit in and out of loads of different shoot 'em ups, and I'm like, what can I do? Because I know a large part of it is you take one and you play it forever and over again until you've learned it inside out, like a song, if you were playing a guitar part or a drum part or whatever. And I don't always necessarily have that kind of attention, and I flip from games and things like that. So I was like, is there some sort of secret little formula that I'm just not getting, or any little thing that can just give me a little edge? And that's the reason why I got the book.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, that for me was quite an interesting thing, because I hadn't really seen that before, certainly not in book form. I think I came across it on Amazon. I don't know what I was searching for. It must have been a game. I was looking for physical copies of something probably, and I came across the book and I was like, oh, that's new. That's a little bit different. Let me try that. Is there something that I can gain from these words that will improve what I'm doing? So so that was pretty cool. Graham, I don't know if you want to give us a little bit about Shoot You Sir and how it started. I know that we've covered it before, but I don't think Dace is particularly familiar with what we do.
Yeah, I would love to hear a little more.
I started my game interest was probably about 1990. Initially, I didn't have a genre I particularly liked, and I soon found the Neo Geo, which was like a system back in those days, the early 90s, that was so far superior to everything else. That's what really drew me into gaming. Before I just had like a Mega Drive, or as Genesis as they called it in America. In those days, I didn't even, it was so long ago, I didn't even have the internet or anything, so I had to do a lot of research, just ringing up dealers and talking to them over the phone for like hours, and then just chatting to people about what was coming out and finding information. And one of the dealers said, "Oh, why don't you do a fanzine on Neo Geo? There isn't one in this country, in the UK." And so I said, "Okay, I'll give it a go," because I like writing about stuff. So I had this paper fanzine that's ran from like, I can't remember exactly, mid to late 90s, about 4.5, 5 years. And it was the only one around. But when that started, the end of the 90s, the Neo Geo is still going technically, and they get the odd game. for me, it was dying out at the end of the 90s, and there was hardly any new releases. So the fanzine came to an end, and so it seemed, you know, my sort of love was 2D arcade games. I like the shoot 'em ups. I really got into Aero Fighters 2. Polestar was a game I really loved on the Neo Geo. Still one of my favourites. So, but it appeared to me that the only two arcade 2D genres which seemed to be continuing, this is like 99, 2000, whatever, was one-on-one beat-em-ups like Street Fighter and King of Fighters, and the 2D shoot 'em up. And so I started to look around on consoles which were coming out then, like the Dreamcast. So that's how I got into that. I did briefly do a paper fanzine called Shoot You Sir, because I wanted to carry on writing about games, but I wanted something I could write about new things coming out, not just referring to the past. So that's how I got. I only did about 5 or 6 issues, which have gone missing of my different movements. And so, but I enjoyed doing it, and it didn't last because I never got. When I did the New Earth, the Neo Geo fanzine, it had a lot of people coming back to me, and there's a lot of feedback in snail mail, as it was then, because it didn't have emails. But it didn't really pick up with the Shoot You Sir, so I sort of let it go. And then a few years ago, not long, I got back into the Neo Geo and started doing New Earth again. This time as electronic fanzine, sending out as email, because one of the biggest collectors in this country contacted me and were reproducing my old ones for newer fans. And he said, "Why don't you just ever thought about doing some writing?" So I thought, yeah, I'd like to. So I got the Neo Geo gear again, and I started writing, but it's the same problem. It only lasted a year because there's nothing new, very little new coming out. So I was harking back to old game. I realised I didn't really want to carry on. I'm not a collector. I don't collect video games. I collect video games, but I don't collect all the ephemera that comes with it. You know, Some people want every single. Anyway, so that all went by the way. So, but I still missed writing about games, and because I think it adds a lot to the hobby for me to write about it and to think about it other than just I've got to get through this, or I'm enjoying playing this game. When's the next one coming out? So I had this idea of doing Shoot You Sir, but everything else I've done before, I've done purely on my own. And I know that Simon, we've known each other for quite a few years. Well, I've known since he was born, really. And so I thought, well, perhaps Simon, because he's done some writing. I thought it'll be good to help me out. So we agreed that we'd like to do it together. And it's been much better with somebody else, because there are times when you're doing stuff month in, month out, we don't feel quite so enthusiastic about it, or it's hard work producing. Even if it's like 10 or 12 pages a month, it's hard work producing that's interesting, or you think, not only do you want to write it and read it, you think somebody else might want to as well. So it's been really good having two of us doing it. We've had quite a few talks, podcasts about how things have developed and how things could develop possibly, because call it traditional shoot up, which means a conservative view. This is what shoot 'em up is. Because I can remember back in the 90s or 2000s, there were some people that only really thought serious shoot 'em ups were like from the 80s, like these really hard bit and 8-bit sort of games.
Yeah,
that really were hard. And not saying that the ones after aren't, but I really, because when we started the fanzine, I thought I want to really much concentrate on the 90s onwards, because I think for me a shoot 'em up isn't just the challenge, so that's a massive part of it. It's the experience. It's those amazing graphics, the way it draws you into its world, fantastic music. Yeah,
totally.
And if you have a feeble sound effect or rubbishy music, which some of them they don't even bother updating the music. It sounds like something early 90s at best. You think at least they could have upped that. If they're going to bring it out again, perhaps do an original, and then they say, well, this is like the souped up version. And I love 2D graphics. There's no reason they can't be, PS4, PS5 standard graphics as well, with that sort of definition. So that's how we've gone. And I'm not a snob about it. I don't mind 3D elements or 3D graphics or CGI rather than like the hand-drawn sort of pixelized. So I'm not, if it's a good game, but as I was saying, it's experience as well as the challenge that makes a great game to me. Some of my favorite games aren't the hardest. To me, it's how much did I enjoy it? It's like, I haven't read your book, but you know, I see some players and I watch these videos of a playthrough of a rock hard game. God, that guy really knows that. He knows exactly what's going on at every split second. And I've never got to that standard, because to me, I like to get, if I play it enough, I sort of kind of get intuitive about it. And I find my way through the problems, not particularly intellectually. I just seem to, you've been playing games for many years, you tend to like tune into how the patterns are and what's going on. And you find a way through. I mean, nothing wrong with being intellectual and working it out and then remember it. I find it, I think probably my least favorite type of shoot 'em up are the ones where if you're not in exactly the right place at all times, you die. That to me, that's not my sort of game. I like it if I go, oh God, I've got out of position. Some skillful playing, I can get out of it. But some of them are type of games. It's just impossible. If you're out of position, you're dead. And I just find that a bit too much. I like a bit of that. Yeah, you've got to remember, you've got to be sensible and strategic, but also I want a little bit of, I can use my skills or get a bit clever and get out of it. But that's just my personal thing. But yeah, that's how the fanzine started.
Yeah, fantastic.
Many a year of doing it, and fortunately Simon coming along, and he probably does more of it than I do now. But I still really enjoy being part of it and doing. There's something about playing a game and then thinking, well, what do I like about it? And even now, every game I play, I always sort of half think about, well, what are the graphics? Well, look at that, and you look at it in all the detail, not just every little clever little thing. And especially with Japanese games, you get this lovely little asides and nothing really to do with the game as a challenge. They just add something to it, a little stupid sort of remark or a funny little thing going on, or just clever little things. I think one of my first games, I remember that, not strictly a shoot 'em up, was Metal Slug. They're brilliant little asides. Every time they stop, they'd be puffing or having a drink, and it was just really clever, and it added so much to the game. I don't know if you're aware of a game called Gigawing. It was originally on the Dreamcast. It's a up-screen, a vertical shoot 'em up. First one was very 2D, very much like I think it's Capcom. It's very much like a Neo Geo or arcade shoot 'em up. It's a great game, and I really enjoyed it. And then they brought out a sequel, and for some reason they changed the style of that and went very CGI. But the thing that made me like it so much was the music was fantastic. The graphics were very sort of grandiose and gothic, and it kind of made up for it. He lost a little bit of the gameplay, but because it was such a good experience, to me, I liked it just as much as the first one. Or every other person I've ever spoken to wouldn't agree with that. But it shows how much, to me, the experience of the game is as important almost as the challenge and the structure.
You mentioned R-Type. Dace, have you had much experience of R-Type? Because I've seen a lot of bullet hell, and that's kind of what I'm sort of into, that sort of vertical bullet hell stuff. But do you have much experience with the R-Type games?
I have very little, to be honest. I have played a few. Like I'm mainly on Nintendo Switch, so it's like I have the R-Type Dimensions X, and I have some Game Boy R-Type stuff too. But for the most part, I'm not super experienced or even super into those games compared to other things.
No, that's fair enough, and that's something I struggle with. Is that's a patience thing, because I mean a lot of the bullet hell games are a lot faster. Whereas I think it's a patience thing with me with R-Type in particular, where it's so slow and you die and you go straight back somewhere else. It's like, I've just done that part.
yeah, like 1,000 times.
Yeah. And I've watched the other day, because you recently had a video come out around the is it the Novice 1cc for Mushihime-sama HD on the Switch. I watched that. It was really helpful actually, because I've been playing Mushihime-sama. I've got it on the 360. I think I originally got it on the PS2, and now I've got it on the 360, and I've got it on the Switch. And there was just one point where it's one of the I think it's not a boss. It's sort of one of the creatures is crawling up, and it's got a head here and two side bits here. And you mentioned if you destroyed the two side bits first and then the head, you get an extend. And I was like, oh, I've been playing it for a long time, and I never knew that.
Yeah.
And there's little details and little things like that you've picked up. And I was just wondering, because I also seen on Twitter that you've done much harder modes on Mushihime-sama as well, because I've seen the screenshots of everything coming across. And that's something I've not mastered it much further along on the harder difficulties. How long have you spent playing Mushihime Sama?
Well, I actually just checked the time last night, and I think I've put about 60 hours into it. Now that's spanning all the different modes on the Switch version. Like there's the arranged mode, novice, version 1.5, original, like all that kind of stuff. And obviously the first time I played Mushi, hours and hours would have gone into just pulling off novice mode for the first time, because I was so inexperienced with the game. But yeah, as you just jump into more modes, like obviously the hours just keep climbing, and the modes do vary quite a bit. So it's like, even if you have 40 hours in version 1.5, it doesn't mean you are just going to bang out a clear when jumping into arrange mode. So yeah, I've put a bit in. That's not too outrageous though, because I've put a lot more time, like double or triple, into other games.
I thought you were going to say more, to be honest. I thought you were like 100 hours or something.
not quite. It's one where when it first hit the Switch, I played a boatload, but then I just got onto other things, and I'm only now coming back to tackle some of the harder stuff again. And also, like, time is added when you're starting to do tutorials for less experienced players too. So yeah.
Nice. I was just wondering what other projects we've got going on. So Graham and I have got, obviously, Shoot You Sir. I've tried coming up with, over the last few months, loads of different things, not just to keep it interesting, but I also like doing new things. I started off just doing some written reviews on games, and then Graham was doing a lot of articles on developers, and then Graham's moved away, and then he started doing some other different articles on different aspects, not just game reviews. And then I did one on Cave, so I covered, Dodonpachi, and I covered all Dodonpachi stuff and things like that. Graham, is there anything you've got in the works or you're wanting to do that you've not touched on yet for Shoot You Sir?
Well, there's nothing really new. I started a thing called The Blast from the Past, which was basically pre-1990 games, because though I did play in the 80s, I was merely, when we were down the pub, or if I was in an arcade and a holiday venue, I'd go in and see what was there, going back to the games like Phoenix, which is one of my all-time favourite games of the 80s. Even though I wanted originally just to keep sort of 90 onwards, I just thought, well, it wouldn't harm. Right, I'm not doing the games as reviews. I'm just looking back at them. Most of them, I'm trying to choose games I actually remember playing, because then you get the feel of the memory of what it was like back then. Because I mean, the whole gaming world is a million miles away from it was in the 90s, let alone the 80s, which I quite missed, because in the 90s, as you know, I've said many a time, they had so many arcades, which you don't have now, gaming arcades. There's just so few now. Then, because arcade machines were more powerful than home machines, people wanted to go and see stuff and play stuff. Being a Neo Geo fan, all the Neo Geo games were available in the arcade before they came out, so you could go and do your own previews and go and play it on the machine. And then, I'm getting that one. But no, I wanted to do something a bit older, and it was really interesting, because you can pick a lot of these games up as collections on the Switch or PS4 or whatever. So it's quite good, one, to have the memory of what it was like back in 1982 or whatever, 85, what it was to play it on a machine, and then pick it up, put it through your big telly, and think, so that's what it, because some of them they look. Well, I think the one I'm going to do next is not quite as old as the other ones I've been looking at, but it's Prehistoric Isle. Prehistoric Isle is an SNK game, but the original one predates Neo Geo. It was the end of the 80s, and I've got that on a game collection on the PS4. That's called SNK 40th anniversary or something, and basically it's pre-Neo Geo games. But one of them is Prehistoric Isle, because I can vividly remember going to there's a holiday sort of, there's a seaside place called Blackpool. And they've got lots of arcades there. And we used to go, and often I'd see Prehistoric Isle playing as I walked along, thinking, God, that looks good. It just had that mixture of dinosaurs and like 1930s biplanes. So it had a real good vibe to it. And for its time, it looks really glamorous. But it's funny because I didn't actually ever got it as a home console game. It was just seeing it. I played it about 3 or 4 times and thought, yeah, this is really good. And then it wasn't until I got the sequel, which came out on the Neo Geo, so I've got that at home, which is obviously the graphics have been, it's like 10 years later or more, so the graphics are much better. But yeah, my memory of the original one was how good it looked and how glamorous it looked. But now you look at it and it looks, it looks how it looks, an 80s sort of, I don't know what bit it is, probably 16-bit or something like that. But it looks, but it's still got something, That's what I quite like about looking back at the 80s in a way, because it's such a limited sound palette and limited, amount of memory, and the pixelization was quite heavy, but they still managed to eke out some really nice sounds, really good gameplay, even some of the just clever little effects to give you to pull you in. It's just with very limited abilities of the consoles or the computers at the time. In fact, another game I was playing the other day, which I originally had on the Mega Drive, was called Gynoug, Gynoug. It's like a little angel, so it's a horizontal, like a little angel flying through like the underworld or whatever. And that is really good. I mean, again, it's 80s and it's sort of early 16-bit, but the music is limited, but it's good. And they shake the screen around. You see that in a lot of the 80s ones. They have the screen shaking around. There's an effect that they could just about pull off in those days. No, I'm quite enjoying looking back in the past and not doing them as an out-and-out review. Just this is how I remember it, and this is how it looks now. I will put some of the technical details of what the game can do and what's in it and what you have to pick up, but I'm not writing it as a review of, like I would with the other. I'm trying to write it as with a bit of history. This is what we did back then, and I remember seeing it then. And how do I see it now? I see it now, 30, 40 years on. How do I see it, and how do I feel about it now? Which is an interesting thing to do.
Nice. It's a bit different from what we were doing when we first started as well, wasn't it? Which was reviews and sort of developer focus and stuff. How about you, Dace? What projects have you got going on?
Well, to be honest, I think it was the start of November, just this past November, where I decided to actually get serious with my YouTube channel, because the first couple of years were just casually throwing up first look style videos and not really offering anything of value. So in November, I decided to just buckle down, start actually doing some concrete projects. So right now the focus is just to grow the channel, offer as much quality, production value and all that kind of stuff, and just useful videos for actually helping people with their struggles, or just showcasing indie games that don't really get the spotlight or attention they deserve. So right now, that's the main thing I'm working on, is just churning out more and more videos and just connecting with others and all that kind of stuff. So nothing too crazy.
Congrats. I think it's really helpful, because I remember years ago, it would be so nice if somebody said, this is how you approach that level. You get to a level and you just think, I can't get through it. And I think it'd been really nice to have somebody that explains it, other than you can get playthroughs. You see people whizzing through every level, and they can pick up something from that. But it's nice if somebody explains, well, this is how it's working. This is how I get through it. And because sometimes, I've not just shoot arts, but some games, you love the game world and you really want to see the next bit, the next level, and you want to get better, of course. But it's sometimes you just can't, to have that little bit of help can make all the difference. Just thinking, oh, I just can't do it anymore. So that's how, and quite often it's a simple thing that you just had to approach it in slightly different ways.
Yeah.
Bravo for that.
And that's actually one thing that got me thinking more along the lines of doing commentary guides, because you're absolutely right. It's one thing to just watch someone play through like a 1cc, like they're not taking hits, they're not using bombs, like all these really impressive things, but there's only so much you're going to understand if you're new to the game. And I feel like walking someone through it and just pointing out, hey, there's this, there's that, that's so much more valuable. It's like they can take that information, they can digest it the way they want. And I feel that's way more helpful than just, oh, here's a video, there's no talking in it, just figure out things on your own. Like it's
yeah, especially when that with the verticals, they go right up to the edge of where the enemy is, and they're firing like, you know, within a pixel of that. You're thinking, well, every time I do that, I get killed. You know, how are you doing it? It would be helpful to say, well, make sure you go up at this. I mean, obviously there's timing involved in that, but he's just thinking, how are they doing that? Because I just can't do it. You know, so yes, as you say, commentary just to give you a little bit of help. The best way of doing these things, because I very rarely play a shoot 'em up at the top of the screen all the time. I'm just not, either I'm not quick enough or good enough.
I love doing that
Crimson occasionally. Yeah, I mean, you can get away with it a certain amount of time, but I just, it's getting that balance, isn't it? But yes, a little bits of advice is worth a lot. Because my other sort of interest, I quite like platform games, and I often find that if I just know how to get through this bit, you know, because sometimes you're just thinking, I cannot do it, and you look up on the internet, somebody says, do this, and you try it, and it doesn't work. You're thinking, well, you know, it'd been much nicer if I had like an in-depth video or in-depth something just to show me exactly why I can't get. I mean, I'm not stupid. I've been playing games for years, but you just get to some games are so hard, and just one little tactic you need to adopt, and it's not always. Trial and error only takes you so far, and when you've done it 50 times trying to get through one little bit, you start to lose hope a bit.
One thing that we do, or I do certainly when I'm doing reviews, so I'll play a game. It might be a game I've had forever, Mushihime Sama or whatever, or it might be something new, and I'll play it through a few times, and then I'll start making some notes. I just wondered, Dace, because obviously you're putting very specific information into your videos at very specific points. Do you write notes down, or is there something you use, some sort of system?
It depends what kind of video I'm doing. If, for instance, the Mushihime Sama like novice guide that I just put up the other day, like that's just me sitting down watching the replay. I do have a few talking points, like, oh, I want to remember to tell people to watch for this or that, but for the most part, I just know the game well enough that I can just watch what's happening and then explain it right there without needing to read tons of notes or anything like that.
That's brilliant. Graham, how about you? When you're writing a review or an article, are you making any notes, or are you doing it from memory?
I handwrite it. What I tend to do is I have to play a game just as a game. I never just, you know, obviously I have to have played it through a few times. So just playing it, not thinking about a review, but a little bit thinking about a review, but mainly just play it. And then I literally get in front of it, well, my television in my case, and I handwrite the review. I always handwrite the reviews, look at whilst I'm playing them. So literally I'll be watching the intro and then writing bits and bobs, just like basic information. And then I'll just play through like the first level, and then not just write about the first level. I tend to be like intuitive about gaming, and I try to be. Well, it's just the way I prefer it, and so I just tend to see what grabs me. I try not to be formulaic. It is difficult not to follow the same way of doing things, but I try not to be formulaic about how. So sometimes I'll just really concentrate more on the little sort of interesting bits about the gameplay, or little extras they put in, which I haven't seen in other games, which is always important. Or sometimes I'll just rabbit on about how great it looks, and I try and play through the whole game, just put it on pause and just write a bit more. Sometimes I can play for literally 30 seconds and I've got to write that down. Other times I can play for 5 or 10 minutes and oh yeah, but I write something. When I very first started, I was quite formulaic, and now I just try and see how the game hits me, because I don't want to. I mean, you could write like a 20-page review, but that would just bore the pants off people. I'm trying to make it interesting, but not too verbose. Just keep it, compact but interesting. And yeah, sometimes it's a 1.5-page review. Sometimes it's a 6-page review or whatever. It's just how you do it. I mean, when I did Death Smiles, because I love the game so much, I wanted to make it a longer review, just to give my impression of how good it is. I'm not saying to anybody else that it's better, because I know it's not a great game in the fact that it's not as challenging as so many other games. But to me, I just love it so much. I wanted people to get into it just by look. So I had lots of pictures, and I had a much longer review than I normally write, just because I wanted to give the background and more than I would normally. But in general, I try to keep it concise. But yeah, I'm a hand writer. and then I've got to put it onto my, then I've got to put it onto Word, and then I've got to put it onto the, that's a bit I really hate, because the trouble is I tend to scribble. So I'm writing down quickly, and then when I get to what the hell does that say? So I've got to read it through 3 times. I can remember what I said. And then, but I've got to put it into Word, and then I just cut and paste it onto the pages we use. I enjoy that, but I like doing the layout. Sometimes I'm quite successful, sometimes I'm not so successful, but in general, I enjoy the presentation side of it, with the doing the fanzine.
Brilliant. Some of the other things I've got down is, I mean, you touched Death Smiles. I did want to touch on Death Smiles and sort of looking at some.
Has Dace played that?
I actually haven't. I have the physical pre-ordered, and I'm waiting on that. Sometimes I will double dip for games, but I think that comes to like $80 for the main game and the DLC for digital. So I was like, you know what? I'll just wait for my physical copy to show up.
That's a lot. Yeah, I originally had it on the 360, but I've still got it on 360. Because originally I had a Japanese and an English 360. This is back in the day when it was the most recent console, but they got sold off.
Nice.
Now I've just got a British console. But you can I managed to track down the British version of Death Smiles.
Do you like shoot 'em up / shmups? Well, you are in luck. Shoot You Sir is a fanzine for shoot 'em up players. Created by Graham Pike of New Earth fame and Sly Asar of Sonara Gaming, Shoot You Sir provides you with reviews, news, updates, and other important information on shmups. Download it for free. There is no subscription. Just head over to slylsr.com/shoot-u-sir. Click to download for free. Yeah, so while we're waiting for Graham, I noticed that you recently been playing Shikondo as well, Soul Eater.
Yeah.
I love that game.
It's amazing because I got it when it first came out physically for the Switch, but because of a bug that was in the game, which just locks your character on screen for a few seconds every so often, I love the look of it, but I never played it much because you just couldn't get anywhere without just taking hits for no reason. So when I recently learned that you can just avoid that whole issue by using an arcade stick, I was like, well, okay, I'll just use a stick and finally play this game normally. So I got really into it, and it was so refreshing being able to finally play this game the way it was intended without just dealing with such a brutal bug.
I didn't realize there was so many. Yeah, I didn't realize there was so much. So, do you say that was on Steam or PC? Or?
Switch. The Switch version.
Oh, it was on the Switch. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Like Graham, we were just talking about Shikondo.
Yeah, great game.
Yeah, and that's something Graham, I think, was telling me about originally, and then I picked it up and I really got into it, and I love the music and the visuals, and the how further along it gets much more challenging, obviously on harder difficulties, but I just loved the way that the bosses would change. You'd do the first stage. I mean, you get that in a lot of games, but physically just completely change, and the music would change as well, and I loved it.
Yeah, it's such a great game.
It's Korean, isn't it?
Yes.
Not made in Korea, that one. Which is when you first see it, you think, oh, that's so Japanese, but actually it isn't. But yeah, it's I love the that mixture of it's sort of mythological sort of background, isn't it? And and just like the screeching, it's just the whole thing. It's a real experience again, isn't it? It's all that sort of traditional sort of artwork mixed in with the shoot 'em up graphics. It's just lovely. And again, it is an experience as well as a lovely, great challenge. But I really like that game too. It does get very hard near the later stages, but one has to persevere.
I'd love them to do either a sequel or a completely different game, but still shoot 'em up. But it would also be nice to have maybe another character or two just for that game as well. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, honestly, I love that game so much. I would love to see them do a second game because they could expand upon what they have in the first one, and I think it would just be fantastic. And we really don't have enough that goes in that kind of direction. Like, sure, you have like themed games that are similar, but there was just something dark and morbid about Shikondo that I haven't come across since that game, to be honest. So it would be really neat to see what else they can do.
Definitely. And I think with the smaller developers as well, I think you'd hit on it before, Dace. Previously, you were saying not a lot of people know much about the game, or they see it and they overlook it, which is kind of what I did till Graham pointed it out. And now it's sort of one of my favorite shoot 'em ups of all time. It's so good.
Yeah, there was one person, I shared like just a little Twitter clip a few weeks ago, and they were like, oh, it's such an incredibly bland game. And yeah, maybe if you're just like basing it off of like the mechanics alone, but that really inspired me to just do the review that I ended up doing, where you're like, there's so much in that game to appreciate if you just open your eyes. And yeah, when you can look beyond a fairly simple system that the game uses, like the mechanics, I mean, like grazing and then being able to launch that off and stuff, there's just a whole world worth of experience. And yeah, it's just amazing. People just don't give games the time and attention.
Yeah.
And then they chalk it up as like, oh, it's basic or it's dull.
If it's not a Dodon Patchy clone, they don't want to know.
Yeah.
I think that's the last thing I'd ever thought about that game, calling it bland. I think it's like very intense, if anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, some of the best games are the most simple ones. It really is. I mean, yes, I do like clever play attributes to the gameplay, but sometimes it really is shoot, bomb, and dodge, and it's fantastic. That's what a shoot 'em up is really, and the rest of it's like add clever little bits to give you a bit of variety. But as you say, it's more to it than just that, though, isn't it? It's the whole, like I think like drawing you in. It's a bit like a movie, isn't it? You watch a movie and just spend the whole time not really engaged with it. Whereas, and same with the game. If you get drawn into it, the gameplay and the world, then they've cracked it. They've done something special, haven't they? Really?
Absolutely.
I wonder, does that, because I know that when some people are learning shmups, they will turn the sound off to try and focus. I suppose if you lost that element of the game, you lose a bit of its flavor. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. Who knows? But
I never thought of doing that.
That's interesting, because for myself anyway, I use this isn't like every single game I play, but there are times where I will use sound effects or even the music to memorize specific parts that I, like, or things that are about to happen. So I'll use the audio as a cue that like, okay, I need to position myself here now because this is happening, or it's this part of the song, so I know that means this is about to happen. So I can actually not really imagine taking that away. Like, I'm sure some people would benefit because they might be able to focus more, but I feel like there's just so much you can do with the audio for focusing.
That's interesting.
So, yeah.
I suppose because it's scrolling along at the same time the music's playing. That's very clever. I never thought about it.
Everyone's going to have their own way of doing it. I'm not saying like, oh, don't do that or whatever, but that's just what I do.
For a review.
Yeah.
Sorry, Graham, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I think it'd be good. It's a good way of like, it's like in a horror movie, or any movie, like a suspense movie. When there's a dodgy person on screen who seems innocuous, they always play a slightly sort of off-kilter type of music, and they could do that with because it's a bit of a giveaway. It's like, oh right, he's dodgy then, even though there's not, they're acting in a very normal way. But I think they could do that in games, because I really don't like it on a game when I have an arrow pointed enemy coming from here. I'm thinking, why do you have to put that? There's something wrong with the game. It's your awareness of the game and sometimes memory of the game, which is a challenge. I don't want somebody saying an arrow, so an enemy. I think it does that on Death Smiles a bit, which I don't really like. But I just think it's a bit feeble. Why not just have a little bit of sort of tense music? Oh, something's coming up, or you could do it. Well, I'm sure they do, but in most games, it's just like something rhythmic or something that creates an atmosphere. But yeah, you could use it more. I understand what Dace was saying about timing. And I've got that myself. You're thinking just as it comes to that little bit, something's going to come out, or it's coming from that angle. But yeah, you could do it with music more. As an intro, what's coming next? Just give you a split second warning.
See, I see what you mean, because I think if you played something 100 times and you're like, yeah, I know enemies are coming from there, that's part of the challenge. and some of the enjoyment of it is because I'm not one seeing things left, right, and center. Part of the enjoyment is sometimes I will just go something I've not played for a long time, stick it on, and go, oh, I'm really getting through all of this. And then there's something I wasn't sure. If there's something, say, a warning there, I already know that, oh, well, I've got to go do it. Part of the challenge is, that it can be fun to do that, I suppose. But is interesting about the music. Because I would just be there. The other thing with that is I get distracted with the music sometimes. Oh, this is really good. Oh, crap.
It's easy to fumble.
You get that with really beautiful scenery, don't you? And you want to look at the scenery, but you can't because you've taken you away and your character's died.
Watch the replay back. You go, oh, yeah, that was really
exactly.
But we used to say that about some of the cave games. There's so much firepower and character sprites on screen. You can't see the background. I was thinking, well, they put a lot of effort into that, and you just get little glimpses. Anyway, I
enjoy that though because there's not many things that give you that feeling of badassery where you're like, oh, destroying it. I'm just across the top, back down. There's something I get from that, but I know what you mean because there are some games, and especially Cave. You're right, but Mushihime Sama's one of them. DOJ Dodonpachi's got a few scenes in it where I like what's going on behind. And Crimson Clover, some of the textures in the environments in the background in Crimson Clover are really nice. And that's distracted me because I'm going, oh, that's really But I've played that enough times to learn that I should stop doing that and just try to focus on what I'm doing. But then it comes down to the experience. Sometimes that's part of the experience. It's like I enjoy all aspects of it. And then if I've just played it for 20 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour, whatever, I don't necessarily want to then go back and watch the replay to enjoy that bit of it. I'd rather just enjoy as an experience. If I'm stupid enough to look away at the wrong time for a game that I've played a million times because there's one little thing I haven't noticed before, it looks nice. It's my fault if I die and the universe is being taken over by the Lord of Darkness.
It's all your fault.
That's what should come up at the end. You died. It's all your fault.
Yeah.
Nice one. So you mentioned you haven't played Death Smiles before. Is there I'd put it out there as well, Graham, is there any games that you haven't played yet that you're wanting to play?
Well, there's a game I was aware of back in the day and still have, and the reason I couldn't get it was it was on PS1 and I only had a British one. I didn't have you had to get, I think it was only available in Japanese at the time. It's called Einhander.
All right.
I think it's a Square game who did some great games back in the day. I think Einhander means like one-handed sword. But yeah, that looks really good. I've never played it, and it's basically it's a horizontal scrolling shooter. Its limitations are it's only one player and it's quite short, but it just looks amazing. Even now, it still looks good. And you're thinking PS1, look at most PS1 shooters and they do look pretty basic, but it looks good. It's got an interesting. It's got like a straightforward machine gun type thing, but it's also got like an arm, like the one hand and you can either have it above or below, and you can pick up little gun pods for it, and it fires out at different angles. It's a bit like, I suppose, a bit like a Einhander. It's called EIN Hander.
Right.
But it's a game I've never owned, but I've been aware of from when it was out. Everybody used to go on about how great it was, and I said, oh. But I didn't get around to getting the Japanese PS1.
So rather than share screen, I'll look at it on my phone. So all to myself. Sorry, Graham, keep going.
No, that's it really. Oh, that is a game. I haven't really even. I say I'd like to play. I haven't looked to see if it's available on PS4 or Switch yet, but I'm surprised if it isn't. Because I've been noticing it. I don't know what as you're all regular YouTube users, whatever you look at on YouTube, whenever you come on, there's loads of stuff like it, isn't there? If you look at music videos of a certain band, suddenly they're all there waiting for you. But I must have. I look up shoot 'em ups, obviously, and Ironhander's been on YouTube quite a lot, which reminded me of. Oh yeah, I remember that game. I always really sort of fancied that one back in the day in the 90s when I couldn't really get one. But anyway, yeah.
I hadn't heard of that, so I'll have to check that out. I'll see if it's on PSN.
Yeah.
I've also got an Xbox that's gathering dust, but there's a couple of shmups on there. The King of Fighters one, which I really enjoyed.
Yes.
And it's got some of the older Saturn ones on there. I can't remember what half of them are called now. I wonder if it's on there because if it came out on the original Xbox, I think they also have it on there, but I don't play it half as much as I play the Switch.
No.
So it's like, well, maybe I should dust it off and see if it's on there. But how about you, Dace? Is there any shmups that you haven't played yet that you want to play or get round to playing?
Tons. I think some of the main ones are whatever cave games are not yet on Switch. Mushihime-sama Futari is probably one of the top games that I'm just desperate to play at some point. But some other ones like Zero Ranger, that one looks really amazing. I know a bunch of friends have just poured tons of time into that because they really enjoy it. Other games like Ketsui or Battle Back Raid or Armed Police Bat Rider, some of the older ones.
Yeah, lots of those were on Saturn, weren't they?
I don't remember exactly what some of those ones originally came out on, but I just watching like replays that my friends have shared, it's just like, oh wow, this stuff looks awesome. I would love to check those out someday.
I've never heard of Zero Ranger.
That one is actually newer, but it's a vertical scrolling. It gets pretty intense from what I recall. But yeah, there's just something about the color palette, the action, everything about it just looks really cool.
Yeah, I've not heard of that as well. Sorry, I'm not on my phone. I'm literally looking at what you're talking about.
Yeah, no worries.
I was looking for the box for Mushihime-sama Futari because I've got it laying around somewhere. I can't wait for them hopefully to start porting more of those cave games. I think one of the games that is on the Xbox that's not on the PlayStation or the Switch at the moment was Guanji.
Oh, I didn't know that is on. I've got that on the Xbox 360 as a download.
Yes, so it's on the I've got an Xbox One. That's the one I'm.
I tell you what isn't Bullet Soul. You don't see that around much.
Yes.
You've got that on 360, haven't you?
No, I don't. It's one of the ones I wanted to get, but the last look it was nearly £200, which is a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I was like, and I spent a lot of money on shmups. Well, not recently, but over the last year or so. That's one I want to get. It'd be cool if they ported that one.
Yeah, definitely. I did have that back in the day, and it's a great game, really enjoyable.
Yeah.
Because whenever you kill something, soul sort of comes down the screen, but you pass through the souls to pick up points or energy or one of the two. But yeah, it's quite clever the way it happens. You shoot things and say it's a ship or whatever, it sort of fades out and there's like this little grey soul of it going down the screen, and you pass through that to pick up. I think it's points.
Nice.
Yeah. So that was brilliant. It was a good game too. I mean, I know obviously we all vary in what games we like. I know because you didn't really like Moochie Moochie Pork and Pink Sweets. I remember getting them back in the day and thinking they were great, but
great to look at.
Yeah, but that was good that we did.
That was right in the middle. So I bought a Japanese 360 and tons of. It came with loads of shmups. They're all cave, including that one. I don't know if I sold it or I still got it around somewhere. And I think that was right in the middle of me playing Mushihime-sama, Dodonpachi, and all the other ones. And then I put those on. I'm like, oh well. I think if I went back to it now, maybe I'd enjoy it a bit differently because it's separate away from right in the middle of all those sort of huge milestones for shoot 'em up games. But is there anything coming out this year that you want to get?
Yeah, a lot of things. I think one of the biggest is actually coming out in 5 days. It's not a shmup, but Chrono Cross on the Switch, the remastered version. That is one of my all-time favorite JRPGs.
Nice.
And the fact that it came out, I think December 18th of 1999 originally, and we're finally. This is one I have wanted on Switch for the longest time. So that's my biggest excitement for this year, finally getting that game.
Nice one. Graham, how about you?
Again, I can't think of any shoot 'em ups. So I know I don't tend to pour through what's coming out in the near future. But there is a platform game called Blasphemous. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. But
It's so good.
It's an awesome game, and there's this talk of a sequel, and I really want to get that, but it's not shoot 'em up. But yeah, it's I love that gothic sort of despairing type of. I mean, not in real life, obviously, that'd be horrible. But but in a game, I just love all that stuff. It's just like that's this sort of warped view of the world through religion, and it's just like I love all that stuff because I really like, as you know, Valfaris is another brilliant platform. But Blasphemous, not as pretty or as perhaps challenging at times. It's just got that atmosphere, and so the funny thing was, I remember watching it on videos, but thinking, shall I get it? And then it looked really pixelated, even on like high def videos, like 108 or whatever. And yet when I got it, it looked fantastic. When I got it onto my television, it looks great. Yes, it's 16-bitty and that, but it's so good to look at. And obviously the whole weird world of it all. But yes, so yes, whatever the sequel comes out, I'll be very grateful. But I don't know of any actual ones which are totally planned.
Have they finished doing the Valfaris shoot 'em up yet? Because that was
that would be awesome. Yeah, because I love that game world, the music, the game world. It's the ultimate 16-bit port to the future in the way they've done the graphics. It's still got that slightly pixelated, but they make an art form out of it, and it just looks. The platform game is bloody hard once you get into the later levels, but it's gorgeous to look at, and I like the heavy metal music. It's brilliant. Nothing better with that sort of gothic-y start, and then that drone-in heavy sort of the death metal, I suppose it'd be. It's just amazing, or doom metal, I suppose. But yeah, I love all that stuff. And yes, if they made a shoot 'em up of that, can you imagine the shoot 'em up of Blasphemous? That would be like they've gone to heaven. It'd just be wonderful. Or hell in that case. But yeah, but can you imagine that? But the same world, but instead of fighting, and jumping, it's mainly shooting and dodging. That would be incredible. But yes, I am looking forward to Valfaris. I'm glad you reminded me because I've forgotten about that. I haven't heard anything more about it.
I need to maybe that can be in the next Shoot You Sir news. I'll have a rummage around, see if there's any updates on it.
Yeah,
because that was because you were talking about Valfaris a lot a few months back, and then when I saw that, I'm like, that looks really good.
Yeah.
And I wish they would do that more, and I think that's why I enjoyed the King of Fighters shmup, because I like King of Fighters as well. And just having those, and it works well with anime type games as well, because the characters translate really well. Just having that something very different, but they're doing it as a shmup. And I know they did it with Earth Defense Force with the Wing Divers, but I struggled with that. I don't know if you know much about that, but
not too much, no.
Yeah, it wasn't as good as the real Earth Defense Force games, and it's all right as a shmup. It's very basic, but it's not as enjoyable. It's not you can tell that's not what they're used to making, essentially. So it was an okay first try. Maybe if they bring a sequel, will be better.
I think the original Earth Defense Force was a 2D shoot 'em up. I've never played it. I think I've seen some pictures of it.
There's one on Super Nintendo, isn't there?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, something like that. Well, I don't own the Super Nintendo. I've never owned a Super Nintendo, but because back in the day, back in the 90s, it's a bit like football teams. I was a Sega man. Yeah, so Nintendo that was the opposition. It's pathetic, but at the time, that's just how it seemed to be. Yeah, tribal.
I remember that. Mind you, it still goes on because people do it. It's the Xbox and the PlayStation.
Yeah.
Seem to be doing, and it seemed to die away, but it's come back a bit more. I hear people talking about it a lot more. This is where we've gone right off topic. But I played the Switch, and I have a PS5 as well. But I played the Switch more, and very specifically for shmups. I mean, I've got Battle Garega, and what's the other one? There's a similar to Battle Garega, and some of the characters are in Battle Garega. I can't remember what it's called.
On what console?
It's a PS4 game.
All right.
I can't remember what it's called now. That's going to drive me nuts. And I'm going, I wish I'd put that over. And obviously Ketsui came out on PS4. Have you got Dace? Have you got the you probably have the Dodonpachi I was going to say Daifukatsu, the Resurrection, because I think the arrange is the same as the Ketsui system.
Yeah, it's either, I think they have like an arrange mode. They have, I think, R mode and L mode.
Yeah,
I think it might be one of the R or L. I'm not sure. But yeah, that's a blast. I was actually just playing that last night for the first time in ages.
Yeah.
So
it is a lot of fun, and that's another one where you have to be you score higher when you're a lot closer to the enemies. And strangely enough, Ketsui's one that I never I think Graham remembers me saying that it's one I struggle to really get into, which is really strange because again, the Dodonpachis are something that I love. So
I must admit, I do get a bit tired of, I don't know how Dace feels, but there's so many, because I think you're more of a vertical shooter. For vertical game, I'm sick of having the tape screen all the time. I mean, I like it, or Tarte, when I call it, but I prefer it. Why can't they do a full screen version for arcade, for home consoles? Because I love a full screen vertical shooter. I think it's awesome. And yet, so many games, you're looking at a third of your screen, unless you turn it up, to the side, which I'm not going to do in my telly. But well, it's not really to damage it. Probably
could get the wife to hold it.
Yeah. But I've seen some people do it. They wedged it up, but I mean, no, I'm not doing that. But I must admit, it does seem that so many vertical shooters are the tape screen. I know they're taking different, but I still think they could do both. I think the one game that did do that, Vasava, or Vasara, is it? Have you ever seen?
Yeah, Vasara.
That's on PS4. They did the original two sort of arcade games in the tape screen, which actually I really like, and then they did a full screen version, which were annoying. These is actually quite annoying to play. The one that it looks great, but the originals do play better, I've got to say. But yeah, the modern one is very much 3D sort of CGI graphics, but it's a lovely looking game. But I don't like the way it plays at all.
Yeah, it is different to the first two. I was just looking on the Switch because there's two I can think of. One of them is Power Roomie, and the other one, which I can't find, which I don't know why not. You could vaunt in it. Jamestown Plus.
I was going to mention that one for sure.
Oh, I love Jamestown. Oh, I did. Yeah. I've not played it for ages, but when I first started playing that, I enjoyed because you got a tiny little border down the side, like a little bezel type thing, but it is full screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good game. Good music.
But there's
a bit too much to read. I like a story. Yeah. I like to draw in, but I don't want to read a ton of text. It sort of gets on my nerves after because it's a shooter, so it should be fairly fast and furious. Not reading for 3 or 4 minutes in between. It should be a bit of blurb. But that aside,
Raiden 5.
Yeah. I love that game, Raiden 5. I think it's really good.
It's brilliant. I had to mute the voices because they talk. But as soon as you got rid of that and you can hear the music and the explosions and everything, I really enjoyed that.
Have you played that one, Dace? Raiden 5?
Yes, I have. Yeah. Actually, it wasn't one of my first on Switch, but it was one of the earlier ones that I got into for sure. I'm not a huge fan of those games. I do appreciate them for sure, but I just prefer ones that play a little differently. That's kind of starting to dip into a more traditional direction, and as cool as they are, it's just I like playing stuff that has a little more substance personally, but they are a lot of fun in ways too.
I think they've got I hadn't played a game like Raiden for a while, and to switch it on, it just had a real sort of classic feel to it, which I really enjoyed. I say it's not the experience that some games are, but you can just really enjoy it for its traditional qualities, and they put a lot of effort into it, which I really like. But it's not up there with my favourites, but I do really like it.
Well, just thinking about Soul Crester came out fairly recently, and that's one that I struggled to enjoy, and I was really anticipating, maybe it's my fault, for anticipating the game, and that's one I've still got to finish reviewing. But I put it down to come back and review it from maybe a slightly different perspective when I come back to it. Did either of you play Soul Crester at all?
Not yet. That's another situation where I have it pre-ordered, and the digital is pretty well. It's not expensive compared to some things. Like it is what it is. But I'm not going to spend on it digitally for the price it is when I already have it physically on the way, or manufacturing and all that.
No, I've not got it. I haven't got it. That's it.
Yeah,
it's like Android Dunner. So I've realized they've just come out on PS4. I'm going to get that version because it's cheaper as well.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Which I mean, I know you two guys are Switch. Really, I prefer the PS4 to Switch. I don't know why. I like the console. I like the way it operates, and I just tend to prefer the PS4 to the Switch. I do like the Switch. It's got an old-fashioned quality about it. I really like. That's what I like about Nintendo. They're a game company. They're not selling anything else. They're just a game company, and I really appreciate that. But I slightly prefer the PS4 when it comes to consoles. I did like the Cube. I don't know if you've ever had a Cube, Dace, but they brought out. It was a little purple box, and what was clever about it had little additions that you could add to the bottom, and you could play Game Boy Advance games through your telly on it, which was good because they had some. Yeah, you could have some. There were some good games. You can get them now, but you couldn't get Gunstar Heroes apart from on the Mega Drive before, and that was good on there, and Astro Boy and things like that. But yeah, it was a good little console. Had a good one called Star Soldier. That was a good shoot 'em up. But no, I think I only got into Switch really because of.
I wondered if we could just go around and mention our sort of top 5 favorite shmups of all time, or currently top 5. Graham, do you want to go first?
Okay, I've written them down because it was mentioned. I have to say, Death Smiles, not the best game in the world, but it's my favorite. I just really enjoy it. I think one of the reasons is when I first saw it, I thought that's what the Neo Geo could have done if it carried on, into the next. It's just lovely 2D hand-drawn type of graphics, which don't continue to Death Smiles 2, where they go on into polygons. And anyway, that is my second is Viewpoint, because I've ever played Viewpoint Dace, but it's a Neo Geo. It's like it's like an isometric diagonal, 2D in playing, but it looks like 3D because it's like an isometric view down. And it had lots of little puzzles, not ultra tricky ones, but like you start off, you're going along this looks like a grass verge with and then there's got these paddles, and you have to shoot them to sort of open the gates and little things like that. It just and it was so good. It had fantastic. We're talking like 1992 or 3. It came out. And the graphics just looks spot on. The music, first time I'd heard like hip hoppy type music used well in a video game, but it wasn't not hip hop. It's I don't know what you call it at the time, but housey type. But it was, and I hadn't played it for years, and I went back to playing that. It's just an awesome game, and it's really hard. I mean, the last few levels are rock hard. Third, Zero Gunner 2, which was on the Dreamcast, and I think you can get it on Switch.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it looks quite as nice on the Switch, but I might be misremembering. But Zero Gunner 2 is. I love the fact that you've got a helicopter and you can fire in 360 degrees. You can spin it round as you. Again, it's not a rock hard game. In fact, it's probably too easy, but it's just a really good fun playing. Polestar, I'll be number 4, which I know again is a bit R-typey. I know. Simon struggled with it, but it's that one game I really put the effort into finishing because I really liked it. And the music's fantastic, and I really had to put a lot of effort. I remember doing a playthrough of it, writing out how to. This is back in the 90s. So I did a written thing of how you could get through the level. It went on forever. And last one, Darius Gaiden, which was originally on the Sega Saturn.
Nice.
The most eye-popping graphic. I can remember. When I first had that, it was on I used to have this really large cathode ray television, which I probably sat a little bit too closely to. Not like a child right up to it, but closest. God, those graphics used to make your eyes go funny because it's so psychedelic. It's just amazing game and lovely music again. the composer to that, whose name I can't remember, is well known for being a great game music composer. So yeah, that's my top 5.
Brilliant, nice one. And I'm gonna, because we've got 2.5 minutes left, I'm gonna let Dace go through this.
Okay.
I'll just run mine off. I won't give you a reason why. Mushi, Nisama, Shikondo, Crimson Clover, Dodonpachi, DOJ, and Blazing Star and Neo Geo. Go on, Dace. It's all yours. 2 minutes.
Yeah, so Crimson Clover for sure. Visara 1 and 2 as well. Like those are just incredible games. I had a blast with those. I think in the summer. Mushihime Sama, Dodonpachi, Daifukatsu. Mainly because like I said earlier, I'm just on the Switch, so that might be a very different list depending on what else I eventually play. But yeah, we'll see. So yeah, those are my 5.
Nice, brilliant.
Yeah, those Visara games, they really are. They're mini classics that nobody hardly talks about, aren't they? Really?
Mm-hmm.
But because I remember the name. For ages, I was trying to remember the name, and then it came up on PS4 that had them in. Yeah, so they're really good. 2
very quick ones that I was surprised from. I cannot remember the name of the developer. I should have written it down. Star Hunter DX and Space Moth as well. Yeah. Space Moth gets slightly less talked about, but Space Hunter DX I was really enjoying for a few weeks, and I'm looking forward to seeing what that developer does going forwards. But I thought I'd just throw that out there. It's telling we've got less than a minute, so I think is everyone happy to finish it there? Is there anything else you want to throw in? Dace, do you want to tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, Shmuptopia on Twitter, YouTube. Shmuptopia.com is where I dump my blog posts, and yeah, as long as you're looking up Shmuptopia somewhere, you'll find me.
Nice one. And we're Shoot You Sir, so you can find us on slysr.com/shoot-you-sir. Go and find us there. Thanks, Dace, for coming along. I know the time
thanks
difference.
So much for having me.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
It's been great. Chat soon, everyone. Thank you very much.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.